Wind rattled the screen door as Elias Garth watched her stagger up the dirt path, one boot dragging behind the other. Clara. Her apron was bunched and dirty, hair loose, and a smear of dust clung to her cheek like she'd crawled through the earth. But it was her gait, limping sharp on the right leg, that stopped Elias mid-whittle, the old pine stick frozen in his hand. He didn't say a word, just rose from the rocking chair, boots creaking, and stepped off the porch. "Walkin' funny," he said low. Clara flinched. Her face jerked up like she hadn't seen him there. Tripped on a root. Wasn't watching. Root must have hit back. She forced a smile, limp more pronounced as she crossed the yard. Elias's eyes flicked to her left wrist, red, raw, and ringed with a bruise, half hidden by her sleeve. His jaw twitched. She noticed his stare, pulled the sleeve down. "Ain't nothing. Storm coming tonight," Elias said, voice flat. She nodded. "I'll fetch the sheets in." Already washed. Elias didn't move, didn't nod, just watched as she limped toward the clothesline. The sky behind her was the color of old gunmetal. Wind picked up. Crows stirred on the fence post, one hopping down to pick at something in the dirt. By supper, Clara said nothing more. Moved slow, eyes down. Barely touched her stew. When Elias asked about her trip into town, she said she hadn't stayed long. Too many eyes. Too many men. Night fell thick. Oil lamp burned low. Crickets chirped loud in the black. He heard it then, just past midnight. A sob, short, sharp, strangle from the bunkhouse. Elias sat up in bed, bare feet pressing to the cold wooden floor. He didn't light a lamp, just moved slow and silent to the window. A figure moved outside the bunkhouse, tall, long coat, slouched hat pulled low. Elias couldn't see the face, only the way the man stepped, casual, like he owned the ground. The man turned back once before mounting the horse, tethered near the barn, then vanished into the dark. Elias's hand brushed the nail behind the porch post, pulled free an old iron revolver, rust biting along the cylinder. A Colt, dust-covered and heavy, still loaded. He stood there for a while, breathing slow. In the morning, Clara didn't come to breakfast. He found her out by the well, crouched low, hands wrapped tight around her knees. Her hair hid her face. "You see him?" he asked. She didn't answer. He crouched beside her. "Was it Danton?" Clara's breath hitched. "I ain't a skin to get you in trouble. I'm a skin 'cause I know trouble when I see it." Clara wiped her face with her sleeve, eyes rimmed red. "He said I still owed him. Don't sound like a debt. He said I took something when I left. Didn't say what. Just wanted to remind me I still belonged." Elias stood. "You don't." She shook her head, didn't look up. "He won't stop." Wind howled over the plain. A shutter clapped, loose against the bunkhouse wall. Elias stared off at the horizon, jaw clenched. By noon, he saddled up the mule and rode into town. The saloon smelled like spilled whiskey, sweat, and things best left unnamed. Elias stepped through the swinging doors. The piano stopped mid-note. Men turned to look, and then turned back. Just the quiet rancher again. No trouble here. He walked to the bar, laid a coin down. "Whiskey." The barkeep slid him a glass. "Looking for someone used to run freight up through Dodge." "Danton. Marshal once, I heard." The barkeep didn't blink. "Ain't heard that name in years." Elias downed the drink. "Funny. He was near my land last night." The barkeep's hand paused on glass. Elias turned. "Anyone else here heard of Danton?" Silence. Then a voice from the back, thin, slurred. "Heard he makes girls disappear. Ones that don't got no kin. Folks say he's got a badge, but it don't mean nothing to—" Elias turned toward the voice, a drunk with a twitch in one eye and a scar across his jaw. "Where do I find him?" The drunk laughed. "You don't." Sheriff Cotter leaned back in his chair, feet on the desk, hat over his face. The office smelled of old smoke and sweat. Elias knocked once on the doorframe. Cotter didn't move. "You hear me, Sheriff?" Cotter sighed. "I heard ya. Man came onto my land last night. Might have hurt my maid. Think his name's Danton. Danton ain't on no wanted posters. Not my jurisdiction." Elias stepped closer. "You plan to do anything?" Cotter shifted the hat off his eyes, looked up slow. "You got proof. Got a limp and a bruised girl. Ain't the same." Elias stared at him, silent. "You got a pass, Garth," Cotter said. "But you gave up that badge long ago. Leave this one be." Elias turned without a word. Dusk, back at the ranch. He followed the mule's tracks out past the barn, toward the boundary fence. Something shimmered in the dirt, a small dark stain. Blood. More spots followed, small, drying fast, leading toward the dry well at the edge of the property. Elias walked slow, boots crunching, drew back the cover on the well. Something fluttered down there. He fetched the lantern, lowered it by rope. A tattered strip of Clara's dress caught on a nail in the stone wall. Below it, wedged in the rocks, a small silver locket, snapped open, no photo inside. Just dry blood. Back in the house, Elias sat on the porch as the sun bled into the canyon. The colt lay across his knees. He didn't move, didn't blink, only stared at the road, waiting for someone who thought no one would come looking. Not here, not for a maid, not from a quiet man. But some things don't stay buried, and some men never forget how to shoot. The horses in front of the saloon shifted restlessly as Elias Garth tied off his mule. He stepped through the doors like a man with time on his back and no patience left. Voices fell, cards still midair. Someone dropped a bottle. He didn't look at them, just walked straight to the bar. Whiskey and a name. The barkeep, same as yesterday, set the glass down without a word. His hands trembled as he wiped the counter. Danton, Elias said. I want to rest. A shuffle behind him. Then the drunk with the scar, same one from before, limped closer, a grin playing at his cracked lips. Danton ain't just a man. He's a door. You open it, you better be ready for what's behind. Elias turned, slow. You talk like you've seen it. I seen what he does. He don't work alone. Got rail hands, freight men, even a Pinkerton or two. Sheriff Cotter? Just one more coin in the stack. Elias pulled something from his coat, dropped it on the bar. A silver locket, blood dried in the hinge. The barkeep swallowed hard. The drunk stepped back. I found at the bottom of my well, Elias said. That girl wasn't Clara. No one answered. He took his whiskey, turned, and left. Back outside, the wind whipped hot sand across his boots as he mounted the mule. He rode east, away from town, past the rail lines, and into the craggy scrubland where the freight wagons ran, unmarked and silent. Buzzards circled. A bone-bleached white stuck out from under a sagebrush. Then he saw it, a wide patch of churned dirt near the arroyo. Wagon wheels, deep ruts, and dark stains leading off toward the ravine. He dismounted, tied the mule to a post of rock, and crouched low. The blood was fresh. Tracked in long smears, someone had been dragged. Boot prints, too. Large. 2 men, maybe more. He followed the trail along the ravine's edge, hand brushing the old colt at his hip. Around the bend, he found it. An overturned cart, half-burned, broken crates scattered like bones. One had the U.S. Marshal stamp, charred and melted. Something shifted in the wind. A foot, pale, small, sticking out from the underbrush. Elias stepped closer, pulled the bush aside. A girl, not Clara, couldn't be older than 16. Face bruised, neck marked, eyes open but empty. He stood there a long time, then turned away and lit the cart on fire. The flames roared fast and angry. As he rode back toward the trail, smoke behind him, his eyes never left the horizon. The sheriff's office was quiet. Too quiet. Cotter was at his desk, chewing on a matchstick, boots up like always. Elias dropped the locket and a strip of cloth on the table. She wasn't alone. Cotter looked at them, said nothing. Dead girl in the ravine. Freight wagon torched. Found U.S. Marshal crates in the ash. Cotter flicked the matchstick away. You think you're building a case, Garth? But all I see is a man chasing ghosts. Elias leaned in. You knew. I know plenty. You protect him. Cotter's eyes narrowed. You don't get to come back after 10 years. Wave your old war medals, and pretend you're the law. I'm not pretending. The sheriff stood. 2 men stepped from the back room, rifles loose in their hands. You keep pushing, Cotter said, voice low. You'll end up out in that ravine next. Elias didn't flinch, just walked out, slow and deliberate. By dusk, he stood in his barn, lantern casting shadows across the walls. He reached into the rafters, pulled down a long, oil-wrapped bundle. Unwrapped it. Inside, a cavalry saber, still sharp. A 6-shot peacemaker with a bone handle. a faded blue coat with 3 brass stars. He laid them all out on the workbench, then walked to the bunkhouse. Clara sat at the table, arms wrapped around herself. He placed the locket down in front of her. She stared at it. "That ain't mine." "I know. She was from the rail station," Clara whispered. "Came in same day I did. Didn't make it out." He sat across from her. "Why didn't you run sooner?" "They got eyes in town. In the church. In the freight yard. Even in the telegraph office. Run, and you disappear. Scream, and you get marked." Elias looked down at the pistol in his lap. "I'm going to mark the back." That night, he followed the trail again. Past the well. Into the canyon where the freight wagons vanished without record. He found what he was looking for. A cave. Hidden behind a wash of rock and mesquite. Wagon tracks led to it and didn't come out. Inside, lantern light flickered. Voices. Laughter. The scrape of boots. He crouched near the entrance, eyes narrowing. There were 4 of them. Danton's men. One wore a badge. One held a girl by the wrist. Young. Shaking. Her face turned away. Elias backed away into the dark. Didn't speak. Didn't breathe. Just memorized every face. Then vanished into the night. Back at the ranch, Clara stood outside, watching the sky. She turned as he approached. "Did you find him?" "Not yet, but you know where he is." Elias nodded. He looked down at his hands, rough, scarred, veins raised like old roads. Clara's voice trembled. "He won't stop unless someone makes him. That's what I aim to do. You'll get killed." He holstered the Colt. "Maybe." She stepped forward, gently gripped his arm. "Don't go alone. I've always gone alone." She let go, eyes filling with something deeper than fear. Something like memory. Elias turned toward the canyon. Dust rose behind him with every step. He didn't look back. Not once. The old cavalry coat didn't fit like it used to. Elias pulled it on anyway. The brass buttons dulled. The blue faded to smoke. He strapped the saber tight across his back, holstered the Colt at his side, and stood facing the cracked mirror nailed to the barn wall. For a long moment, he didn't see a rancher. He saw a soldier, a killer, a name buried in war reports and desert sand. The floorboards creaked behind him. Clara stood in the doorway, eyes locked on the coat. "That what you used to be?" Elias didn't answer. She stepped inside, slow. "Who were you, really?" He took the saber from the peg, tested its weight. "Still clean. Still sharp. They called me Major Garth," he said. "I rode for the Union cavalry. 37 engagements. 18 towns taken. 2 burned to ash." Her breath caught. "You were in the Plains massacre." His jaw worked. "I gave the order." Silence filled the barn like smoke. "They said you vanished." I walked off my post, buried my commission under a Joshua tree, and never looked back. She didn't step away. Didn't flinch. "I know what it's like to want to forget," she said. He met her eyes. "But forgetting's how men like Danton stay in power." At dawn, Elias rode west to the marker, a half-buried stone set at the edge of his land. No name carved, just a single brass star hammered into the granite. He knelt beside it, dug with his bare hands until he reached the iron box. Inside, a journal, wrapped in oilcloth, its leather cover stained dark. He opened it. Pages crinkled, the words shaky. Names, places, sketches of faces. One entry circled in red. Marshall E. Danton, civilian attaché turned bounty broker. Reports of trafficking, off-books transport of captives under railroad contracts. The last line written in his own hand, years ago. If ever found again, end it. He stood and closed the book. The wind cut sharp through the canyon. He rode back in silence. The town looked different in the morning. Still quiet, but not asleep, like it knew something was coming. Elias walked through the main road in uniform. Dust clung to his boots. The saber hung like judgment at his back. People stopped and stared. Whispers spread. A child pointed. A woman crossed herself. He passed the church, the telegraph office, the general store. At the sheriff's station, Cotter stepped outside, blinking at the sun. His hand hovered near his belt. "You wearing the thing like it still means something?" he muttered. Elias kept walking. Cotter followed. "This ain't your war anymore. It is if girls are still dying." "Danton's gone," Cotter said quickly. "Left town. Took his freight line south." Elias stopped. turned, looked Cotter dead in the eye. You never asked where. Back at the ranch, he loaded supplies into his saddlebag. Jerky, ammo, matches, oil for the lantern. Clara handed him the canteen. Her hands trembled. You'll need this, she said. He nodded. You can still leave. Ride east. There's a preacher in Montrose who owes me. I'm not running. He gave her the journal. Proof, he said. If I don't come back, you give this to the circuit judge. She didn't answer. He mounted the mule. I ain't riding out to win, he said. She met his eyes. I know. He turned the mule toward the canyon. Wind carried the dry whisper of leaves behind him. By dusk, he reached the freight trail again. A wagon rolled slow across the ridge, flanked by riders. Covered, heavy, branded not with the marshal's seal, but the mark of the Iron Cross Freight Company, long shuttered but still whispered about. Elias waited until they passed, then followed. The wagon turned into a gully, disappearing into the mouth of a hidden pass. He crept along the rocks, every step practiced, silent. Below, campfires flickered. Half a dozen men, Danton among them, tall, broad-shouldered, his marshal's coat open, revealing a vest lined with knives. He was laughing. Elias could hear it from the rocks above. The same laugh he remembered from a court-martial years ago. Same sneer. Same rot behind the eyes. A girl was tied to a post near the freight wagon. Elias steadied his breath. He didn't charge. Not yet. Just watched. Watched and remembered. The war had made him fast. The cavalry made him cruel. But it was the silence of peacetime that had made him dangerous. He moved like a shadow between the rocks, closer, boots muffled in the sand. Every step was a memory. Every face below was a ghost from some forgotten town. A whip cracked. The girl cried out. Elias drew the Colt and kept moving. Later that night, Clara stood at the edge of the porch, lantern in hand. A rider appeared out of the dark. Not Elias. A boy no older than 17, bruised and wide-eyed. He held out a bundle wrapped in the cavalry coat. Told me to give you this, the boy said. Said if he ain't back by dawn, ride. Clara opened the bundle. Inside, the saber, slick with blood, and a torn page from the journal, scrawled in dark ink. He's not finished yet, but neither am I. She looked west, where smoke curled against the stars. Her hand tightened on the lantern. She didn't run. She waited. Boots hit the street hard. Dust curled in slow spirals as Elias Garth walked straight down Main Street, his coat flapping in the wind like a battle flag. Noon sun glared overhead. Everything else stood still. Folks watched from windows, some behind curtains, others not bothering to hide. At the far end, outside the sheriff's office, Marshal Danton leaned against the hitch rail, arms crossed, a toothpick hanging loose from his lips. Sheriff Cotter stood to his right, one hand resting near his holster, the other wiping sweat from his brow. You picked the wrong day to play hero, Cotter muttered. Elias stopped 10 paces away. I didn't come to play. Danton straightened, spit the toothpick. You're looking awful formal, Major. Didn't think the Union sent cavalry for one dirty maid. Elias' voice was quiet. Flat. I ain't here on Union orders. No, Danton smirked. You're here 'cause you got nothing left but ghosts. And I ain't scared of dead men. Elias didn't blink. She told me everything. About the rail girls, the freight routes, the bodies. Cotter's eyes widened. You told her? Danton's hand dropped to his belt. She's not the only one going to disappear. Then Elias tossed something into the dirt between them, a small, silver locket, blood still on the hinge. Behind him, Clara stepped out from the alleyway, holding the journal high in both hands. Stop lying, Danton. Her voice cracked through the street like a rifle shot. They'll all know. Gasps echoed from the windows. Cotter turned toward her, just enough. Elias drew. One blink. That's all. The Colt roared. Cotter's rifle spun from his hands before he could lift it. He dropped, screaming, clutching his shoulder. Danton moved next. Quick, practiced, but Elias had already pivoted. One shot slammed into Danton's thigh. Another tore through his hand as he tried to draw. The marshal went down, cursing, blood pouring into the dirt. Silence. Then doors creaked open. One by one, townsfolk stepped into the street. A woman near the tailor's shop pointed. That's the man. The one who took my cousin from the train depot. A rail worker stepped forward, face pale. He paid me to keep quiet. Said they were runaways. More voices rose. Testimonies, accusations. Truth, loud and raw, flooded the street. Clara knelt beside Elias, helping him reload. "You all right?" He nodded, eyes still on Danton. "He's not dead yet." "No," she said, "but he's finished." By sundown, the sheriff's office was under new hands. A circuit judge arrived from Montrose by horse relay, called for witnesses and survivors. Danton lay cuffed in the jail, whispering to himself, still bleeding. Caught her? He'd be lucky to keep his arm. Elias stood on the edge of town, staring west. Behind him, Clara walked up slow. "They'll tell this story different," she said. "Make you into some kind of legend." "Already was one," he said. "Didn't help none." "You going?" He nodded. "Got a grave to visit. Promised a girl once I'd come back with justice. She didn't ask who. Didn't need to." He offered her the saddlebag. Inside, the journal, the locket, and the battered old saber. "Keep 'em," he said. "Someone's got to remember." She reached for his hand, held it a moment. "You reminded them today," she said. "That justice ain't always loud. Sometimes it rides quiet." He stepped into the saddle. "Look back one last time." "Some folks ride to forget," Elias said. "Me? I ride to remind." The sun dropped low, setting fire to the canyon rim, and the quiet rancher rode off into legend.